Like many other gamers around the world, I've been playing one of our most anticipated releases of the year, which came in the form of Elden Ring's Shadow of the Erdtree expansion, which released last month, and wow, did it live up to the hype and the high expectations for the base game. If you loved Elden Ring, you'll love the DLC, and if you didn't enjoy Elden Ring, this expansion still might not cut it for you. There are, however, areas in which I feel the game did improve over the base game. Some quick things that I think the expansion did better are I enjoyed a lot more of the boss fights in the game, loved how open-ended the area is where you can in theory skip many areas and come back to them later, and the visuals of these places are just state of the art. One of my favorite improvements is in the form of the story and NPCs, making it easier to follow the main path and very engaging to interact with. And it happens to be that my favorite character in the DLC and boss fight is thanks to how From Software created this NPC and questline. Before I can actually get to talking about this character and story in question, we first need to take a look at how FromSoft decided to approach the story and their characters in the DLC compared to the base game, and honestly, I don't think there is much of a difference in how characters are designed, as the biggest factor comes in the story and seeing the journey. Elden Ring characters are just as intriguing as the ones in the base game, each coming from vastly different backgrounds, with characters who served under the likes of Radahn and Mohg coming together to follow in kindly Miquella's footsteps. The last part, following Miquella, is the driving factor of the main storyline of the DLC, finding Miquella's crosses, which he discarded as he gave up his body in his chase for godhood. FromSoft Souls games have a very vague approach to storytelling, but in the expansion, it's more straightforward. Don't get me wrong, the story is still super vague, and you're going to be reading lots of item descriptions and watching hours of lore videos to fully understand what's going on, and some stuff is just so crazily hidden in this expansion, but it's a lot easier to follow the NPC storylines. They ask you to go there, find something, go in this direction, and repeat. Yes, they might be a bit repetitive, as a lot of the times you're going to interact with the character, do what they ask in another area, then come back and talk to them. This approach applies to most of the quests in the game, like Ymir's and the back and forth of Ansbach and Freya. However, although that might sound like a very bare bones quest design, there are a lot of factors at play here that make these quests as good as they are. You've got fun areas to explore on Earth, like the hidden area of the Shadow Keep, going through Bonnie Village, finding the Finger Ruins, and this one area in the game that is completely locked behind a jester. Like, what? I won't be showing the area in question, but it's one of the most beautiful areas in the game ever. But who in their right mind thought that it was a good idea to hide it behind a gesture that you have to find in the overworld? I mean, I thought some of the illusory walls were insane, but this is next level. I mean, speaking of which, there is of course another area of the game that is hidden behind an illusory wall, but I digress. I did mention that the stories were easy to follow and fun to engage with, and that's because of the simplicity of the narrative. Again, vague and intriguing stories, but it's just a lot more straightsforward. Add on top of this some great voice acting, and you've got a great cast of characters that make up the Miquella gang. And then there's this guy, screaming on the roadside in between the Shadow Altus and the Graveside Plains. This guy here is my favorite character in Elden Ring, and I think one of the best characters FromSoft has created. His name is IGON. You might not expect much from him when you first see him lying helplessly by the roadside, but once he starts screaming out, you're in for a ride. We can't really make much out of Egon's looks so far as he's lying down, but one thing we do know about him is that he is in pain and that he really hates something known as Bayle. At this point in time, we don't know much about Bayle, but Egon really drives it home that this Bayle thing is the worst thing since sliced bread. You wouldn't expect a man who is in so much pain and looks like they're on the verge of death having the energy to scream at the top of their lungs how much rage they're filled with, but here we are, a man who is not ready to give up and curses this vile being. It's not common where we see a character as loud-spoken as Egon here. FromSoft's NPCs, at least from the games that I've played from, aren't typically loud or filled with hate as strong as this. They're typically a lot more quiet, soft-spoken, have a way of their words, making their intentions unclear, creating this aura around them where you really want to weigh your actions towards them or against them. But our friend Egon here, he's pretty brash about what he wants. He wants to take revenge on Bayle, and everyone from the ruins of Ra to the Cerulean coast knows it. So, with a guy so passionate about taking on this Bayle, seeing the state with how their last encounter left Egon and all the vile remarks he has towards it, what exactly is Bayle? If you do some exploring in the realm of Shadow, you can come across a spirit facing this giant mountain, referencing the terror that encapsulates Bayle. This mountain in the background here is the Jagged Peak, which takes up the whole southeastern part of the map. How to reach it and learn more about Bayle is quick to get to, not directly where Bayle resides, but to the general area. Past your first meeting point with Egon, there is the Dragon's Pit, where you are invaded by the ancient Dragon Man, right before entering the mini-dungeon, and at the bottom of the dungeon, where he serves as the main boss. As you can probably tell with a name like Dragon's Pit and fighting against an ancient Dragon Man, it serves as an indication that we're going to be entering an area of dragons. And man, do I love dragons. Also, the weapon you get from defeating ancient Dragon Man, the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana, is easily my favorite weapon in the DLC, but after you make your way out of the pit, you are greeted with this view of that dreadful mountain you saw earlier. Color palette switches to this red hue, giving me flashbacks to my first trip to Caelid, and the powerful storm that doesn't seem to end, with its thunder booming in the distance with winds as strong as a hurricane. As you press on, you see a drake and another 2 paths. The left looked a bit more threatening, and I didn't want to take on this drake just yet, so I took a right and instantly died when this lightning sheep instantly killed. So I took a right and I found myself at the Grand Altar of Dragon Communion, which has a very striking look to it, located on this big dead dragon, where the Dragon Communion priestess is, and what she has to say is pretty striking. First, she wants us to kill Bayle. But why? Well, it's because her being a priestess of the Dragon Communion are people who were servants of the great Dragon Lord Placidusax, one of the earlier Elden Lords and a boss fight from the base game. So why does she want Bayle dead? Well, it's because Bayle is the ancestor, creator, leader of the Drakes, the smaller dragons that we've seen throughout the Realm of Shadow and the lands between. But more so, Bayle was the dragon in question that caused the great runes that we see on Placidusax. When we see Placidusax in the base game, we can see that he has been roughed up, leaving us to wonder who or what happened. This battle happened when Bayle wanted to take Placidusax's title as Dragon Lord, but their battle left both of them so injured that although it may appear to have been a stalemate, Placidusax still kept his title. But the path to Bayle is no mere walk in the park. You have to kill the first drake that I passed by earlier, make your way up the Jagged Peak, where you have to kill 2 more drakes in the midst of a duel. Upon defeating them, the loud laughter of a familiar voice can be heard. IGON here witnessed our heroics against the drakes and calls us a Drake warrior, before leaving us with his parting wish to take his finger and summon him when we face Bayle. And so you do. As you scale the mountain, there lie many corpses of dead dragons in your path, and also another dragon fight that I skipped, but apparently people online have said that you need to defeat Senesax here to complete the quest. I completed the quest just fine without beating him, so that's that. We finally reached the summit of the Jagged Peak, and as you enter the arena, the Dragon of Legend soars in from above. Bayle is menacing. He is of monstrous stature, attacks with his arms, wings, bites, flames, lightning, flies around, and just looks horrifying. If you pay close attention, you can actually see the 2 missing heads of Placidusax biting into Bayle, never letting go since their fierce bout in that time long ago. I don't think I would have been able to beat this battle, as it was just tough. He overwhelmed me quickly, and I couldn't get his movements right. But then I remembered the request from a fellow Drake warrior, so I summoned him.
Hereby vow, you will rue this day.
IGON's rivalry with Bayle, which has been pointed out on the internet a lot already, strikes a strong resemblance to the story of Moby Dick, of Captain Ahab against the great giant whale. IGON uses harpoons, screams at the top of his lungs, doesn't back down, and fights with a vengeance. He might be the biggest hater of 2024 alongside Kendrick, but it was IGON's will that inspired me, motivated me to fight this dragon. Damage was dealt, a staggered Bayle fell, came back and entered his survival instinct, his second phase, and we fought valiantly until finally, Bayle the Dread was no more. Sadly, IGON's physical body was no more once Bayle had been slain, but I'm sure that he was alive until the very end when he heard Bayle's final roar before he left the living world. His fighting spirit was refreshing to see in a world as grim as Elden Ring's. It was a character that sparked hope and grit to overcome all odds that the world may put against him, yet he still tried. He crawled his way as far as he could get to the Jagged Peak until his legs couldn't. His cries, voice, and character all added to the scale of this boss fight, making that final moment against Bayle one of the greatest moments in Elden Ring. You know, although IGON himself did not contribute much to the lore or world as other NPC storylines do, IGON was just himself through and through. He was a simple man with a single goal in mind, to act revenge on the Dread himself. Thank you, IGON. Your heroics won't be forgotten. And with that, welcome to the end of the video. Thanks for watching all the way through to the end, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on IGON as a character and the battle against Bayle, so comment them down below. If you enjoyed my content, a like and a subscribe really mean a lot, but so too a dislike, as that helps me know what works or doesn't work on the channel. I've been enjoying a lot of Elden Ring recently with this new expansion, and I think the next 2 videos will also be about Elden Ring. As for when they will come out, I don't know. I'll try my best to make them as good as I can, but with that said, I've got to work on them, so thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good rest of your day, night, and week, and with that, Storm out.